Welcome to a tale that'll grip your heart. In the dazzling chaos of Las Vegas, millionaire Carlisle Harrington bets $3 million to marry Mia Torres, a fierce casino dealer fighting to save her sick grandmother. What starts as a reckless wager spirals into a whirlwind of passion, betrayal, and redemption. When a devastating secret shatters their bond, can Carlisle prove his love is real? Will Mia find the strength to forgive? This roller coaster of emotions will keep you guessing. Stick around to uncover the shocking twists. Will love triumph over lies? Hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling family and never miss a saga like this. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Your city might inspire our next tale. Let's dive into this unforgettable journey together. And trust us, you won't want to miss how it ends. Share your thoughts as we unravel whether second chances can rewrite a broken heart. The Golden Mirage Casino glittered like a fever dream in the heart of Las Vegas, its neon veins pulsing with the promise of fortune and folly. Slot machines sang their siren songs, and the air thrummed with the clink of chips, the shuffle of cards, and the low hum of ambition. At a high-stakes blackjack table tucked in a velvet-draped corner, Carlisle Harrington sat, his broad shoulders hunched, a glass of whiskey sweating in his hand. At 32, he was the golden heir to Harrington Enterprises, a titan of industry that cast a long shadow over steel and tech. But tonight, the weight of that legacy felt like a noose. 7 days ago, Lauren, his fiancée, had walked out, her parting words slicing deeper than any boardroom defeat. "I can't live in your world, Carlisle. It's all control, no heart." Her rejection stung, not because he loved her. He wasn't sure he had, but because it exposed a crack in his carefully curated empire of confidence. The wedding, set for next week, was now a ghost haunting him. His father's ultimatum echoed in his mind: marry to secure the family fortune, or watch it pass to his insufferable brother, Nathan, whose smug grin was a constant taunt. Millions had been spent on the venue, the planners, and the spectacle. Failure wasn't just personal, it was public. Carlisle's friends, a pack of trust fund wolves in tailored suits, sprawled around the table, their laughter sharp as shattered glass. Whiskey had loosened their tongues, and they pounced on his wounds like hyenas. "Still licking your wounds, Harrington," sneered Derek, flicking a chip across the table. "Lauren did you a favor. She saved you from looking like a lovesick fool." The others cackled, their eyes glinting with the cruelty of men who thrived on one-upmanship. "Shut it," Carlisle snapped, his voice low, dangerous. The whiskey burned in his throat, but it couldn't dull the headache throbbing at his temples. He'd spent years crafting the perfect image. Charming, untouchable, a man who bent the world to his will. Lauren had been his final conquest, a polished heiress he'd wooed with calculated precision. He'd given her everything: diamonds, private jets, promises of a throne beside him. Yet she'd seen through the veneer, calling him hollow. Now, with the clock ticking, he was adrift, the empire he'd been groomed to rule slipping through his fingers. Jake, the ringleader of the group, leaned forward, his grin sly as a fox. "You're too soft, Carlisle. Always have been. Bet you're still pining for her, writing poetry in your penthouse." The table erupted in laughter, and Carlisle's grip tightened on his glass, the ice clinking ominously. Jake's eyes darted across the casino, landing on a figure behind a nearby table. "Tell you what," he said, voice dripping with provocation. "I bet you can't marry someone who'd never even glance at you. Someone ordinary." Carlisle followed Jake's gaze. At a bustling blackjack table, a young woman dealt cards with the precision of a metronome. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, her face unadorned by the heavy makeup of the cocktail waitresses. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the players with quiet authority. She was invisible to the high rollers, just another cog in the casino's machine. But there was a steadiness to her, a defiance that caught Carlisle's attention. "Her?" Carlisle said, raising an eyebrow. "The dealer?" "Exactly," Jake replied, his grin widening. "Mia Torres, if the name tag's right. Bet you can't win her over, let alone marry her. What do you say, boys? Our night's winnings, $3 million, if Carlisle can pull it off." The others hooted, tossing their chips into an imaginary pot, their eyes gleaming with the thrill of the game. $3 million was pocket change to them, but the real prize was watching Carlisle squirm. Carlisle's jaw clenched. The bet was absurd, a drunken taunt born of boredom and malice. He should have laughed it off, walked away, let the night dissolve into another blur of excess. But Lauren's words gnawed at him. No heart, and the jeers of his friends lit a fire in his chest. He was Carlisle Harrington, a man who'd never lost a deal, a game, a woman. Ordinary or not, this Mia Torres would be no different. "You're on," he said, his voice cold as steel. "I'll have her saying I do before the month's out." The table roared with approval, glasses clinking in a mock toast. Carlisle drained his whiskey, the burn fueling his resolve. He pushed back his chair and stood, his tailored jacket falling perfectly over his frame. The casino's lights cast shadows across his sharp features, giving him the look of a predator stalking prey. As he crossed the floor, the crowd parted instinctively, sensing the weight of his presence. Mia Torres felt him before she saw him. A shift in the air, a ripple of attention from the players at her table. She glanced up, her hazel eyes meeting his, and for a moment, the chaos of the casino faded. Carlisle flashed a smile, the kind that had disarmed CEOs and socialites alike. "Evening," he said, sliding onto a stool at her table. "Deal me in." Mia's expression didn't flicker. She'd seen his kind before, rich men who thought charm could buy anything, who tossed $100 chips like confetti and expected the world to bow. "Minimum bet's $500, she said, her voice flat, her hands never pausing as she shuffled the deck. Carlisle tossed a stack of chips onto the felt, his eyes locked on hers. "Name's Carlisle," he said, leaning forward slightly. "You're Mia, right? Figured we could get acquainted." Mia's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm working," she replied, dealing the cards with a flick of her wrist. The players around them shifted, sensing the tension, but Carlisle didn't blink. He played his hand, winning by a hair, and slid a tip her way, a $1,000 chip. "For your trouble," he said, his smile unwavering. She pushed the chip back. "I don't take handouts," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. The rejection landed like a slap, and Carlisle's smile faltered, just for a second. The table went quiet, the other players exchanging glances. Mia turned to the next hand, dismissing him as if he were nothing. Carlisle leaned back, his mind racing. She wasn't like the others. No flattery, no coy glances. There was a fire in her, a wall he hadn't expected. Across the room, Jake and the others watched, smirking, their laughter a distant echo. The bet loomed larger now, not just for the money, but for his pride. He'd never back down from a challenge, and Mia Torres, with her steely gaze and unshakable resolve, was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "Let's make it interesting," Carlisle said, his voice smooth but edged with defiance. "One hand. If I win, you give me your number." Mia's eyes flicked to him, assessing, calculating. For a moment he thought she'd refuse, but then she nodded, a ghost of a smirk on her lips. "Deal," she said, and the cards slid across the table, each one a step toward a game neither of them could predict. The neon glow of the Golden Mirage Casino lingered in Carlisle Harrington's mind as he stepped into the desert night, the weight of Mia Torres's phone number burning a hole in his pocket. Her rejection at the blackjack table had been a sharp jab, But her grudging agreement to his wager, a single hand for her number, had given him a foothold. He'd won, barely, his ace, and 10 edging out her king. Her hazel eyes had narrowed as she scribbled her number on a cocktail napkin, tossing it at him like a challenge. "Don't make me regret this," she'd said, her voice a blade. Carlisle, grinning, had tucked the napkin away, ignoring the jeers of his friends across the room. The bet was on, and he was already plotting his next move. By noon the next day, Carlisle sat in his penthouse overlooking the Strip, the city's chaos muted by floor-to-ceiling glass. The napkin lay on his mahogany desk, Mia's handwriting sharp and deliberate. He'd spent the morning replaying their encounter, her unflinching gaze, her refusal to bend under his charm. She was no Lauren, no polished heiress eager for his approval. Mia was a fortress, built from years of grit, and that made her intriguing. The $3 million bet with Jake and the others was a spark, but Carlisle's pride was the real fuel. He'd never lost a conquest, and he wasn't about to start now. He dialed her number, leaning back in his leather chair. The line rang twice before her voice cut through, wary but clear. "Who's this?" "Carlisle Harrington," he said, his tone smooth, practiced. "From the casino. Thought I'd cash in on that number you gave me." A pause, heavy with skepticism. "You're persistent, I'll give you that," Mia said. "What do you want?" "Dinner," he replied, unfazed. "Nothing fancy. There's a diner off the Strip, Rusty's. Good burgers, no pretension. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock. You in?" Another pause. Carlisle could almost hear her weighing her options, her instincts screaming to hang up. "I'm working till 6, she said finally. "And I don't do charity dates." "It's not charity," he shot back, a grin creeping into his voice. "It's a burger. You eat, don't you?" A huff, almost a laugh. "Fine. Rusty's 7, don't be late." The line went dead, and Carlisle leaned back triumphant. Step 1, secured. The next evening, Rusty's diner hummed with the clatter of plates and the sizzle of grease. Carlisle arrived early, trading his tailored suit for a crisp button-down and jeans, a calculated move to blend into Mia's world. The diner was a relic, checkered floors, vinyl booths, and a jukebox crooning Elvis. He slid into a corner booth, his eyes scanning the door. At exactly 7, Mia walked in, still in her casino uniform, her ponytail slightly frayed from a long shift. Her expression was guarded, but her stride was confident, like she owned the place. "Carlisle," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "You clean up nice for a burger joint." "Thought I'd match the vibe," he replied, flashing a smile. "You look like you just ran a marathon." 12-hour shift, she said, shrugging. "Dealing cards to drunks isn't exactly a spa day." She picked up the menu, her eyes skimming it with practiced efficiency. Carlisle studied her, the faint lines of fatigue around her eyes, the way her fingers tapped the table, restless but controlled. She was a survivor, and he respected that, even if he wouldn't admit it. The waitress took their orders. Cheeseburger for him, grilled chicken sandwich for her, and Carlisle leaned forward, elbows on the table. "So, Mia Torres," he said, his voice light but probing. "What's your story? You're not a Vegas lifer, are you?" Mia's eyes flicked to him, assessing. "Born in Reno," she said. "I moved here 5 years ago. Work pays the bills, that's all you need to know." Her tone was clipped, but Carlisle caught a flicker of something, pride, maybe, or defiance. "Fair enough," he said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "But I'm curious. You've got this fire, like you're fighting a war nobody else sees." She arched an eyebrow, unimpressed. "And you're what, a therapist now? Stick to your chips, Carlisle." He laughed, the sound genuine, surprising even himself. "All right, point taken, but humor me. What's one thing you love?" Something that's not work. Mia hesitated, her fingers pausing on her water glass. Old sci-fi movies, she said finally, her voice softening. The cheesy ones. Forbidden Planet. The Day the Earth Stood Still. My grandma used to watch them with me. Her eyes flickered with warmth, then hardened again. Your turn. What's a rich guy like you love besides throwing money around? Carlisle leaned back, caught off guard. He could have lied, spun a tale of yachts or art collections, but her honesty disarmed him. Vinyl records, he said. Classic rock, mostly. Zeppelin, Stones. There's something raw about the sound, like it's alive. He paused, then added, My dad hated it. Said it was noise. Mia's lips twitched, almost a smile. Didn't peg you for a music guy. Thought you'd say, I don't know, private jets. Those get old, he said, and for a moment their eyes locked, a spark of understanding passing between them. The food arrived, breaking the tension, and they ate in companionable silence, the jukebox filling the gaps with a Springsteen ballad. As they talked, Carlisle steered the conversation to lighter ground. Favorite movies, worst Vegas tourists. The time Mia caught a card cheat mid-game. Her laugh, rare but bright, was a victory he hadn't expected. She was sharp, quick with a comeback, and utterly uninterested in his wealth. It was refreshing, and it unnerved him. Lauren had loved the trappings of his world. Mia seemed to see through them. The check came, and Carlisle paid, waving off Mia's offer to split it. Next one's on you, he said, testing the waters. She raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. As they stepped into the cool night, the strip's lights blazing in the distance, Carlisle felt a shift. This wasn't just about the bet anymore. Mia was a challenge, yes, but she was also a mystery, one he wanted to unravel. Tomorrow's my night off, Mia said, her voice casual but deliberate. You got plans, or are you just gonna stalk me at the casino again? Carlisle grinned, sensing an opening. There's a retro arcade downtown. Pinball, Pac-Man, the works. 8 o'clock. You game? Mia studied him, her eyes searching for the catch. Then she nodded, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. You're on, Harrington, but don't cry when I crush you at Galaga. She turned and walked away, her silhouette fading into the neon haze. Carlisle watched her go, his pulse quickening. The bet, the money, his friends' laughter. They were distant now, drowned out by the thrill of the chase. Mia Torres wasn't just a mark. She was a fire he couldn't resist, and he was already burning. The desert sun had long dipped below the horizon, and Las Vegas sparkled like a fevered dream as Carlisle Harrington pulled up to neon nostalgia, a retro arcade tucked in a gritty corner of downtown. The memory of Mia Torres's smirk last night at Rusty's Diner, her challenge to crush him at Galaga, had kept him restless all day. Their burger-fueled conversation, laced with shared passions for sci-fi flicks and classic rock, had cracked something open in him. Mia was a puzzle, her sharp wit and guarded heart drawing him in like a moth to a flame. Tonight, he'd push further, test the walls she'd built so carefully. Inside, the arcade buzzed with the chirps and bleeps of vintage machines, their flickering lights casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the worn linoleum. Carlisle, in a black t-shirt and jeans, leaned against a Pac-Man cabinet, scanning the crowd. At exactly 8, Mia appeared, her casino uniform swapped for a faded Ramones tee and sneakers. Her dark hair hung loose, framing her face, and her hazel eyes glinted with a mix of curiosity and defiance. Harrington, she greeted, her voice teasing but edged with caution. Ready to lose? Big talk, Torres, Carlisle shot back, grinning. Let's see if you can back it up. He gestured to the Galaga machine, its screen alive with pixelated aliens. Mia slid a quarter into the slot, her movements practiced, and the game sprang to life. They took turns, elbows brushing as they jostled for control, their laughter cutting through the arcade's din. Mia was ruthless, her fingers dancing over the buttons, racking up points with surgical precision. Carlisle, competitive but outmatched, feigned outrage as she obliterated his score. "You cheated," he accused, leaning close as her final ship exploded in a burst of pixels. "Nobody's that good." "Skill, not luck," she retorted, nudging him with her shoulder. "You're just sore you got schooled." Her smile, brief but unguarded, sent a jolt through him. For a moment, the bet, his father's ultimatum, the looming specter of Nathan inheriting Harrington Enterprises, they all faded. There was only Mia, her laughter a rare melody in his calculated world. They wandered to a claw machine next, its stuffed prizes taunting them. Carlisle, determined to redeem himself, fed at quarters, his brow furrowed in mock concentration. Mia watched, arms crossed, her amusement softening her usual wariness. "You're terrible at this," she said, as the claw dropped empty again. "Help me out then," he challenged, stepping aside. Mia took over, guiding the claw with a focus that made him think of her card dealing, steady, deliberate. She snagged a plush alien, its googly eyes absurdly endearing, and tossed it to him. "For your wounded ego," she quipped. Carlisle clutched the toy, feigning offense. "Wounded? I'm unstoppable." But his grin betrayed him, and Mia's laugh echoed, drawing stares from nearby teens. They moved to pinball, then skee-ball, their banter flowing as easily as the arcade's neon glow. Carlisle shared a story of sneaking into a dive bar at 17 to hear a Stones cover band, and Mia countered with a tale of watching Blade Runner with her grandma Rosa during a thunderstorm. Their worlds, his of penthouses, hers of struggle, seemed less distant with every word. As the night wound down, they sat on a bench outside, the desert air cool against their skin. The strip's lights shimmered in the distance, a reminder of the city's relentless pulse. Carlisle glanced at Mia, her profile softened by the glow of a nearby street lamp. "You're not what I expected," he said, his voice low, unguarded. She turned, her eyes searching his. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You're real," he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. "Most people I know play games, status, power. You don't. You just are." He hesitated, then added, "It's rare." Mia's expression flickered, surprise then skepticism. "You don't know me, Carlisle. One night of pinball doesn't make you an expert." Her tone was sharp, but there was a crack in her armor, a hint of curiosity. "Then let me," he said, leaning closer. "I want to know you, Mia. All of it. Rosa, the sci-fi marathons, what keeps you fighting?" His voice was earnest, a far cry from the polished charm he'd used at the casino. The bet lingered in his mind, a shadow he pushed aside. This wasn't about Jake or the money. Not anymore. Mia studied him, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. "You're dangerous, you know that," she said softly. "Guys like you, rich, charming, they make promises they don't keep." She stood, brushing off her jeans. "I've got enough to lose without adding you to the list." Carlisle rose, his heart pounding. "Give me a chance to prove you wrong," he said, his voice steady. "One more date. Name the place, the time. I'll be there." She looked at him, the weight of her life. Rosa's illness, the endless shifts, the men who'd burned her before, etched in her gaze. Then, against her better judgment, she nodded. "There's a dive bar on Fremont. Jukebox, cheap beer. Friday 9. Don't screw it up, Harrington." As she walked away, her silhouette swallowed by the city's glow, Carlisle clutched the plush alien, its googly eyes a silent witness to the shift inside him. Mia wasn't just a challenge. She was a reckoning. And for the first time, he wondered if he was playing a game he might not win. The dive bar on Fremont Street smelled of stale beer, its jukebox warbling a gritty Tom Petty tune as Carlisle Harrington pushed through the door. Mia Torres' challenge from their arcade night, a dive bar date, 9 o'clock sharp, had set his pulse racing all week. Their last encounter, filled with pinball battles and unguarded laughter, had shifted something in him. Mia's fire, her refusal to be swayed by his wealth, was no longer just a hurdle in a bet. She was a mirror, reflecting the hollowness of his calculated life. Tonight, he'd push further, not for Jake's wager, or his father's empire, but for the spark he felt when she smiled. Mia was already there, leaning against the bar in a black tank top and jeans, her dark hair loose over her shoulders. Her hazel eyes flicked to him, a mix of amusement and wariness. "Right on time, Harrington," she said, sliding a bottle of cheap beer his way. "Didn't think you'd survive a place without a wine list." Carlisle grinned, taking the bottle. "I'm full of surprises, Torres." They clinked bottles, settling into a scarred wooden booth. The bar buzzed with locals, tattooed bikers, weary shift workers, worlds away from Carlisle's penthouse circles. He liked it, the rawness of it, and the way Mia fit here, her edges unsoftened by pretense. Their conversation flowed as easily as the beer, picking up where the arcade left off. Mia teased him about his abysmal pinball skills, and he countered with a story of crashing his father's vintage Mustang as a teen, earning a rare laugh from her. She opened up about Rosa, her grandmother, whose cancer treatments drained every dime Mia earned at the Golden Mirage. "She's a fighter," Mia said, her voice thick with pride. "Raised me when my parents bailed. I owe her everything." Carlisle listened, his usual quips silenced by her raw honesty. He'd never known struggle like hers. His life was boardrooms and trust funds, not hospital bills and double shifts. "You're a fighter too," he said, his voice low. "Most people would have broken." Mia's eyes met his, searching for the catch. "Don't romanticize it," she said, but her tone softened. "It's just what you do for family." She paused, then turned the tables. "What about you? What's a guy like you fighting for?" The question hit like a dart. Carlisle swirled his beer. The weight of his father's ultimatum, marry or lose Harrington Enterprises, pressing against his ribs. He could have lied, spun a tale of ambition, but Mia's gaze demanded truth. "Control," he admitted. "My dad's got this empire and I'm supposed to inherit it. But it comes with strings. Marriage, stability, all that. I thought I had it figured out, but..." He trailed off, Lauren's rejection flashing in his mind. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a cage, not a crown," he chuckled, bitter. "Yeah, maybe." The jukebox shifted to a slow Springsteen ballad, and Carlisle seized the moment. "Dance with me," he said, standing and offering his hand. Mia hesitated, then took it, her calloused fingers warm against his. They swayed in the dim light, her body close but guarded, the bar's chaos fading around them. For a moment, Carlisle forgot the bet, the empire, everything but her. As the song ended, he held her gaze, his heart pounding. "Mia," he said, voice rough with a sincerity that startled him. "Marry me. I know it's fast, but I'm serious. I'll take care of you, Rosa, everything. Let me give you a life where you don't have to fight alone." Mia froze, her eyes widening. "You're insane," she said, stepping back. "We've had 2 dates, Carlisle. You don't even know me." Her voice was sharp, but there was a tremor beneath it, a crack in her armor. "I know enough," he pressed, stepping closer. "I see you, strong, real, someone worth betting on. Let me prove it." The words were reckless, born of a conviction he hadn't felt with Lauren. The bet with Jake lingered in his mind, a guilty shadow. But this was bigger. Mia was bigger. Before Mia could respond, her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a hospital's name. Her face paled as she answered, her voice tight. "What's wrong with her?" Seconds later, she hung up, her hands trembling. "Rosa's worse," she whispered. "They need to operate now. It's..." It's 50 grand. Maybe more. Carlisle's chest tightened. He saw the fear in her eyes, the weight of a life she couldn't carry alone. I'll cover it, he said without hesitation. All of it. Let me help, Mia. Say yes. Not just for Rosa, but for us. Mia stared at him, torn between distrust and desperation. Years of betrayal, by men, by luck, clashed with the hospital's deadline. Rosa was her world, and this man, this stranger with a dangerous smile, was offering salvation. If I say yes, she said, her voice barely audible, it's for her, not you. Carlisle nodded, his throat tight. For her, then. But I'll make you see it's more. They left the bar, the night air sharp against their skin. By dawn, they stood in a small Las Vegas chapel, the ceremony stark and surreal. Mia, in a simple dress, clutched a bouquet of gas station roses, her eyes distant. Carlisle, in a borrowed suit, spoke vows that felt too real, too heavy. Rosa watched via a grainy video feed, her frail smile a silent blessing. As they signed the papers, Carlisle arranged for Rosa's surgery, his wealth moving mountains with a single call. Mia moved into his penthouse that night, her meager belongings dwarfed by marble and glass. She stood at the window, the strip's lights a mocking constellation below. This doesn't feel like mine, she said, her voice hollow. It will, Carlisle promised, his hand brushing hers. But as she pulled away, he saw the chasm between them, her life of sacrifice, his of privilege. The bet, once a game, was now a chain, and Mia's reluctant vow was a fragile thread. He'd won her hand, but her heart was another battle, one he wasn't sure he deserved to fight. The penthouse atop the Las Vegas Strip gleamed with sterile opulence, its marble floors and crystal chandeliers a stark contrast to the cramped apartment Mia Torres had called home just weeks ago. After the whirlwind chapel wedding, driven by Rosa's dire hospital prognosis, Mia had stepped into Carlisle Harrington's world, a place of excess that felt like a borrowed dream. The surgery for her grandmother, funded by Carlisle's swift transfer of 50 grand, had been a success, and Rosa was recovering in a private suite, her frail frame bolstered by hope. Yet, as Mia stood at the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's neon sprawl below seemed to mock her. She was a wife now, bound to a man she barely knew, her heart tethered to gratitude but shadowed by doubt. Carlisle, sensing her unease, had urged her to keep her job at the Golden Mirage Casino. You don't need to change for me, he'd said, his voice earnest, and Mia clung to the familiarity of her blackjack table. Its green felt a lifeline to her old self. Each night, she dealt cards to high rollers, her hands steady despite the whispers that followed her. Harrington's girl, a cocktail waitress muttered, her tone laced with envy. Landed a whale, didn't she? Mia ignored them, her focus split between the game and the man waiting for her at home. Carlisle's care for Rosa, daily visits with her favorite jasmine tea, hours spent listening to her stories of old San Juan, had softened Mia's defenses. He wasn't the arrogant tycoon she'd met that first night. Or so she hoped. In the quiet hours after her shifts, Mia and Carlisle carved out a fragile rhythm. They cooked simple meals in the penthouse's gleaming kitchen, Mia teaching him to dice onions without tears, Carlisle's laughter filling the space when he botched a sauce. They watched The Thing on his oversized screen, Mia chuckling at his mock horror during the creature's reveal. These moments, small but unguarded, wove a thread of intimacy that startled her. Carlisle opened up about his childhood. Summers, trapped in his father's boardroom, learning to negotiate before he could ride a bike. I was raised to win, he said one night, his voice low, but winning feels empty sometimes. Mia, surprised by his vulnerability, shared a memory of Rosa braiding her hair before school, a ritual that grounded her through years of chaos. Their worlds, once oceans apart, seemed to inch closer. Yet, cracks lurked beneath the surface. At the casino, the whispers grew louder, sharper. A regular, a balding man with a Rolex, smirked as he tossed a chip. "Heard you're living the high life now, sweetheart. Hope you're worth it." Mia's jaw tightened, but she kept dealing, her smile a mask. The rumors painted her as a gold digger, a nobody who'd snagged a millionaire. They stung, not because she cared about their opinions, but because they echoed her fears. Had she traded her pride for Rosa's life? Was Carlisle's kindness just a debt she'd owe forever? Carlisle, too, felt the strain. His friends, Jake, Derek, the pack who'd sparked the bet, had gone quiet, their texts unanswered since the wedding. He'd dodged their calls, unwilling to face their smug questions about his deal with Mia. The bet, once a drunken lark, now felt like a stain he couldn't scrub clean. He hadn't told Mia, and the omission gnawed at him, especially when she looked at him with tentative trust. At night, he watched her sleep, her face softened by exhaustion, and wondered if he was worthy of the chance she'd given him. His father's ultimatum, secure the Harrington empire through marriage, loomed, but Carlisle found himself caring less about the boardroom and more about the woman beside him. One evening, Carlisle surprised Mia with a rooftop dinner, the penthouse's terrace transformed with string lights and a table set for two. He'd ordered her favorite, grilled chicken tacos from a food truck she loved, eschewing the gourmet chefs he usually employed. Mia, fresh from a shift, raised an eyebrow at the setup. "Going soft on me, Harrington?" she teased, but her smile was warm, unguarded. "Only for you," he replied, pulling out her chair. They ate under the stars, the city's hum a distant pulse. Carlisle shared a rare story of his mother, who'd left when he was 10, her absence a wound he rarely acknowledged. "She hated my dad's world," he said, his voice rough. "Sometimes I think I'm turning into him." Mia reached for his hand, her touch light but steady. "You're not," she said. "You're here eating tacos with me. That's not him." Her words, simple but piercing, cracked something open in Carlisle. He wanted to tell her everything, the bet, the pressure, the truth. But fear stopped him. What if she walked away, like Lauren had? As they cleared the plates, Mia's phone buzzed with a text from a coworker. "Watch your back. People talk." She frowned, tucking it away, but Carlisle caught the shift in her expression. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Just work," she lied, her voice tight. She didn't mention the rumors, the sidelong glances, the growing sense that her new life came with a price. Carlisle nodded, sensing her distance, but not pushing. They ended the night with a slow dance to a crackling vinyl of Fleetwood Mac, her head against his chest. But the moment felt fragile, like glass on the edge of a fall. At the casino the next night, Mia dealt cards with mechanical precision, her mind churning. The whispers were relentless now, a chorus of doubt that drowned out her fragile trust in Carlisle. She wanted to believe in him, in the man who'd sat through Rosa's stories and burned a pan trying to make her eggs. But the glares, the murmurs, they were a reminder of the world she'd entered, one where motives were never pure. As she shuffled the deck, a shadow fell over her table. A man in a sharp suit, his smile cold as a blade, watched her. She didn't know him, but his presence felt like a warning, a prelude to a storm she couldn't yet see. The golden Mirage Casino pulsed with its usual fever, but for Mia Torres the air felt thick, suffocating. Her blackjack table, once a haven of control, was now a stage for whispers that had grown from murmurs to venom. Since moving into Carlisle Harrington's penthouse, Mia had felt the weight of scrutiny. Co-workers' envious glances, players' sly remarks about her lucky catch. Last night's rooftop dinner, with its tacos and starlit dance, had briefly quieted her doubts. Carlisle's vulnerability, his confession about his mother's absence, had made her believe, just for a moment, that their hasty marriage could be more than a transaction. But the text from her coworker, "Watch your back. People talk," lingered like a splinter, and the shadow of that suited man at her table last shift haunted her. Tonight, as she dealt cards with mechanical precision, she braced for something worse. The casino's din, slot machines, laughter, the clink of chips, faded as a new figure approached her table. He was tall, his tailored suit sharper than Carlisle's, his blonde hair slicked back with predatory precision. His eyes, a cold gray, locked onto Mia with a smile that didn't reach them. "Evening, Mrs. Harrington," he said, his voice smooth but laced with malice. "Or should I say, Mia Torres? I hear you're still keeping your maiden name. Smart move." Mia's hands froze mid-deal, her heart lurching. She didn't know this man, but his use of her married name sent a chill down her spine. "Do I know you?" she asked, her tone flat, masking the tremor beneath. "Nathan Harrington," he said, sliding onto a stool. "Carlisle's brother. Thought I'd meet the woman who snagged my little brother so fast." His smile widened, but it was a blade, not a greeting. The players at the table shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension, but Nathan ignored them, tossing a stack of chips onto the felt. "Deal me in." Mia's pulse raced, but she forced her hands to move, dealing the cards with practiced calm. Nathan Harrington, Carlisle's brother, the one poised to steal the family empire if Carlisle failed their father's ultimatum. She'd heard his name in passing, a shadow in Carlisle's stories, but never this close, this real. His presence was a warning, and she braced for the blow. Nathan played his hand, winning with a casual flick of his wrist, but his eyes never left her. "You're quite the story, Mia," he said, his voice low, meant for her alone. "A casino dealer, scraping by for her sick grandma, now living in my brother's penthouse. Quite the leap." He leaned forward, his tone dropping to a hiss. "But you didn't know it was all a bet, did you?" The word bet hit like a gunshot. Mia's breath caught, her fingers tightening on the deck. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice steady but brittle. Nathan's laugh was cold, cutting. "Oh, he didn't tell you? Classic Carlisle. It was a drunken dare. $3 million from his buddies if he could marry you. A nobody, they said, just to prove he could. And to lock in our father's empire, of course. You're a means to an end, sweetheart. A pawn in his game." The casino spun around her, the lights blurring into a nauseous haze. Mia's mind raced, replaying every moment. Carlisle's charm at her table, the diner, the arcade, his proposal in the dive bar. Had it all been a lie? Her heart screamed no, clinging to the tacos, the Fleetwood Mac dance, and his quiet care for Rosa. But Nathan's words were a blade, slicing through her fragile trust. "You're lying," she said, but her voice wavered, betraying her. "Am I?" Nathan smirked, sliding a chip across the table as a tip. "Ask him yourself, but you know the truth already, don't you?" He stood, brushing off his suit. "Enjoy the penthouse while it lasts." With that, he vanished into the crowd, leaving Mia rooted to her spot, the cards trembling in her hands. The rest of her shift was a blur. She dealt, smiled, and nodded, but her mind was a storm. When the clock hit midnight, she clocked out, her legs carrying her to a cab on autopilot. The penthouse was dark when she arrived, Carlisle's jacket slung over a chair, a half-empty coffee mug on the counter. He was asleep, sprawled across the king-sized bed, his face softened in a way that usually warmed her. Now, it fueled her rage. "Carlisle," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. He stirred, blinking awake, his hazel eyes clouded with sleep. "Mia? What's wrong?" "Your brother paid me a visit," she said, her words ice. "Nathan. He told me about the bet. $3 million to marry me, is it true?" Her voice, broke on the last word, her hands clenched to keep from shaking. Carlisle's face drained of color, guilt flashing in his eyes before he could hide it. He sat up, reaching for her. "Mia, listen! Is it true?" she shouted, stepping back. "Did you bet your friends you could marry me? Was this all a game?" He swallowed, his jaw tight. "It started that way," he admitted, his voice low, raw. "Jake and the others, they dared me that night at the casino. But it changed, Mia. I swear it changed. I fell for you, for real. The bet doesn't matter anymore. You're what matters." Mia laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Doesn't matter? You lied to me, Carlisle. Every word, every touch. Was it just to win? To get your daddy's company?" Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I trusted you. I let you into my life, Rose's life, and it was all a joke." "It wasn't," he pleaded, standing now, his hands outstretched. "I love you, Mia. I didn't know what love was until you." But his words felt hollow, drowned by Nathan's venom and her heartbreak. Mia grabbed her bag, her movements jerky, desperate. "I can't do this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I can't be your prize." She stormed out, the penthouse's luxury mocking her as she fled to Rose's apartment, her world collapsing under the weight of his betrayal. Carlisle stood frozen, the echo of the slamming door, a verdict he couldn't escape. The empire, the bet, his pride, they were ashes now, and Mia's absence was a wound he'd carved himself. For 3 sleepless nights, Carlisle wandered the strip's neon labyrinth, chasing ghosts of their rooftop dinners and arcade laughter. Each step deepened his regret, the city's glitter, a cruel reminder of the life he'd gambled away. Nathan's smirk haunted him, as did his father's final call, disowning him with surgical precision. By the 3rd dawn, he retreated to a dingy studio apartment, his worldly possessions reduced to a duffel bag. There, amid the stench of mildew, he faced the truth. Mia was his only salvation, and he'd destroyed her trust. With nothing left but resolve, he vowed to rebuild, not for glory, but for her. The Las Vegas dawn was a bruise of pink and gold, but for Carlisle Harrington, the world was gray. Mia Torres' departure 3 nights ago, her tear-streaked face, and the slam of the penthouse door, had left a void that no wealth could fill. Nathan's cruel revelation at the Golden Mirage had shattered Mia's trust, and Carlisle's life unraveled in its wake. His father, incensed by the scandal, had stripped him of his role at Harrington Enterprises, handing the empire to Nathan with a sneer. "You're no son of mine," he'd spat, and Carlisle, once the golden heir, was cast out. His bank accounts frozen, his penthouse leased to another. Now, in a cramped studio apartment smelling of mildew, he stared at a blank wall, Mia's absence a wound that bled with every breath. The bet, once a drunken taunt from Jake and his cronies, was a chain around Carlisle's neck. He'd ignored their calls, their mocking texts about his failed gamble, but the guilt was his own. He'd lied to Mia, used her to secure his legacy, only to realize too late that she was worth more than any empire. Her strength, dealing cards through exhaustion, fighting for her grandmother Rosa, had shown him a life beyond boardrooms. Now, with nothing but a duffel bag and a battered vinyl collection, he was determined to win her back, not with money, but with truth. Carlisle's first step was a letter, penned on cheap notebook paper, his hand shaking as he poured out his regret. "Mia, I was a fool. The bet was real, but my love for you is more real. I'll spend my life proving it if you'll let me." He slipped it under the door of Rose's apartment, where Mia had fled, knowing she might burn it unread. He wrote another the next day, and another, each one a confession of his fear of becoming his father, of the emptiness he'd felt before her. He didn't expect replies, But the act was a lifeline, a way to keep her close. Rosa, recovering from her surgery, was his unexpected ally. Carlisle visited her daily, bringing her jasmine tea and stories to distract her from her pain. "You hurt my girl," Rosa said one afternoon, her voice frail but fierce. "But I see your heart, mijo. It's not all bad." Her words, laced with cautious hope, fueled him. She told him Mia was staying with her, working double shifts to cover new medical bills. Her silence, a wall Carlisle couldn't breach. "Give her time," Rosa advised, "but don't give up." Carlisle didn't. He took a job at a tech startup, a far cry from his corner office at Harrington Enterprises. The work, coding apps for small businesses, was grueling. The pay was meager, but it grounded him. He sold his Rolex, his tailored suits, trading them for jeans and a used laptop. The hustle reminded him of Mia's life, her relentless fight, and he vowed to rebuild with the same grit. At night, he walked past Rosa's apartment, hoping for a glimpse of Mia, but the curtains stayed drawn, her absence a silent rebuke. Weeks passed, and Carlisle's letters piled up, unanswered. His friends, once his shadow, had vanished, their loyalty as fleeting as their whiskey-fueled bets. Jake sent one last message, "Tough luck, man," and Carlisle deleted it, severing ties with a world that had cost him everything. He focused on Rosa, helping with her errands, carrying groceries up her creaky stairs. One evening, as he set a bag of mangoes on her counter, Rosa gripped his arm. "She's hurting, but she's listening," she said. "Keep trying." Emboldened, Carlisle waited outside Rosa's apartment the next night, a single rose in hand, its petals bruised from his nervous grip. The door creaked open, and Mia stood there, her face drawn, her eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. "What do you want, Carlisle?" she asked, her voice flat but trembling at the edges. His throat tightened, words he'd rehearsed dissolving under her gaze. "You," he said, raw and unpolished. "I was wrong, Mia. The bet was my shame, not yours. I love you. Not for a game, not for my father's empire. For you. For Rosa. For the life we could have." He held out the rose, his hand shaking. "I'm nothing without you. Let me prove I've changed." Mia's eyes flicked to the rose, then back to him, a storm of pain and doubt swirling within. "You think a flower fixes this?" she said, her voice cracking. "You made me feel like a fool, Carlisle, like I was just a prize." Tears welled, but she blinked them back, her jaw set. "I trusted you, and you broke it." "I know," he said, stepping closer, his voice thick. "I'll spend my life making it right if you'll give me a chance. No money, no tricks, just me, trying to be the man you deserve." He paused, his heart pounding. "I'm not giving up, Mia. Not on you." She stared at him, the weight of his words clashing with the betrayal that still burned. Rosa's voice echoed in her mind. "He's not all bad." But trust was a fragile thing, and hers was in shards. "I need time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can do this again," Carlisle nodded, relief and fear warring in his chest. "I'll wait," he said. "As long as it takes." Mia closed the door, the click echoing like a gavel. But her hesitation, the crack in her resolve, was a sliver of hope. He walked away, the rose still in his hand, its thorns pricking his palm, a reminder that redemption came at a cost. In the days that followed, Carlisle doubled down. He sent Mia a final letter, promising no more unless she reached out. He threw himself into his startup, its small successes a testament to his new resolve. Rosa, growing stronger, became his confidant, her stories of Mia's childhood, a map to the woman he loved. As he carried her groceries one afternoon, Rosa squeezed his hand. "She's coming around," she said. Be patient, mijo. Carlisle clung to that, knowing the road ahead was steep. But for Mia, he'd climb it, one painful step at a time. The Las Vegas skyline shimmered under a velvet dusk, but for Carlisle Harrington, the city's glitter held no allure. Weeks had passed since his desperate plea outside Rosa's apartment, where Mia Torres, her eyes shadowed with pain, had asked for time to heal from his betrayal. The cruel wager exposed by his brother Nathan had cost him everything: his inheritance, his father's respect, and nearly Mia's heart. Now, in a modest studio apartment, Carlisle rebuilt his life with the grit he'd learned from her. His startup job, his letters to Mia, his quiet visits to Rosa, they were threads of hope, fragile but unbroken. Tonight, he'd take a final leap, not for pride but for love. Carlisle's persistence had worn down Mia's walls, though her trust remained a delicate thing. She'd agreed to meet him at a beachside cafe an hour from Vegas, a quiet spot where the desert met the sea. Their first meeting there, days after his rose-wielding plea, had been tentative, coffee shared in silence, her gaze wary but softening. Over the weeks, they returned, their talks deepening. Mia spoke of Rosa's recovery, her dreams of helping others, and Carlisle shared his startup's small victories, his voice free of the arrogance that once defined him. They laughed over shared loves, Zeppelin riffs, cheesy sci-fi plots, finding echoes of their arcade nights before the bet tore them apart. Tonight, the cafe's patio glowed with fairy lights, the ocean's murmur a soft counterpoint to Carlisle's nerves. Mia arrived, her dark hair catching the breeze, her Ramones tee swapped for a simple sundress. "You're early, Harrington," she said, her smile cautious but warm, a far cry from the fury of their last penthouse fight. "Couldn't risk you beating me at punctuality, too," he teased, pulling out her chair. They ordered tacos for her, a burger for him, and the conversation flowed, lighter than before. Mia shared a story of Rosa's latest hospital checkup, her grandmother's sass earning a laugh from Carlisle. He countered with a tale of his startup's first client, a local bakery thrilled with their new app. "Feels good," he said, his voice quiet. "Building something real, not just chasing power." Mia studied him, her hazel eyes searching. "You've changed," she said, her tone probing. "But I'm still scared, Carlisle. That bet, it's a scar. How do I know this is real?" His chest tightened, her words echoing the guilt he'd carried since Nathan's revelation. "You don't," he admitted, leaning forward. "Not yet. But I'm here, Mia, every day, trying to be the man you saw before I screwed it up. I love you. Not for a game, not for an empire, for you." He paused, then added, "Rosa believes me. She's been my toughest critic." Mia's lips twitched, a reluctant smile. "She's Team Carlisle now," she said. "Keeps telling me you're not all bad. High praise from her." They laughed, the tension easing, but her eyes held a question, waiting for proof beyond words. Carlisle had planned for this. After dinner, he led her to the beach, the sand cool under their bare feet. The stars blazed above, a canvas of possibility. He stopped near a driftwood log, his heart pounding, and pulled a simple silver ring from his pocket. "Mia," he said, kneeling, his voice steady despite the tremor within. "I don't have a penthouse or an empire anymore. Just me and a promise to love you and Rosa every day I'm alive. Marry me again. For real. No bets, no lies." Mia's breath caught, her eyes glistening in the starlight. The memory of their chapel wedding, rushed, born of desperation, flashed through her mind, clashing with the man before her, humbled and earnest. "Carlisle," she whispered, her voice thick. "I want to believe you, but it's hard." "I know," he said, rising but holding her gaze. "I'll wait as long as you need, but this ring, it's yours, whenever you're ready." He pressed it into her palm, her fingers closing around it, warm against the cool metal. Mia looked at him, her heart torn between fear and the love she couldn't deny. She stepped closer, her lips brushing his. A tentative promise, not a yes, but a beginning. Months later, they built a life in a modest bungalow, Rosa joining them as her health steadied. Carlisle's startup grew, its success earned through sweat, not privilege. Mia enrolled in social work classes, her passion for helping others blooming. Their evenings were simple, vinyl records spinning, Rosa's stories filling the air, laughter over burnt dinners. One quiet night, Mia slipped the ring onto her finger, her eyes meeting Carlisle's. "I'm ready," she said, and they wed in a small ceremony, Rosa beaming, the ocean their witness. As they danced under the stars, Carlisle whispered, "You're my home, Mia." She smiled, her heart whole, knowing their love, forged through betrayal and redemption, was a dawn worth fighting for. What a journey for Carlisle and Mia, from a reckless bet to a love that conquered betrayal. Did Mia make the right choice in giving Carlisle a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're dying to hear what you think. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster of redemption and romance. Your support means the world. Stay tuned for more stories that tug at the heartstrings, and we'll see you next time. Keep dreaming big.